that something to offend you guys?
You know,
Attorney's late.
here he comes.
About time or anything?
Late. That's a pay deduction.
Oh, Dan, he says.
I was up there looking at last meeting.
Yeah, look at the snow coming down.
I got the idea that I was on the same page with him, but maybe I didn't. I make that motion to open the meeting.
I'll second it.
In a second, all in favor? Four, nothing. We're waiting for it. Couldn't open it. All right. First item on the agenda is the library trustee appointment. Is Kibler here? There. Oh, there you are. You all have the application?
I'll make a motion, we accept it.
Second.
Accept? Any discussion? You care to say anything?
Ms.
You don't have
Kibler
to.
is a local Belgrade resident. She is a writer also. She has published one book so far. We had her as a visitor at the library last year. She's actively involved in many committees in Belgrade, as Marble, and some of the surrounding areas. As a writer, she's also a passionate reader. So I think she's going to be a wonderful addition and promotion to the board with your approval.
Thank you. All those in favor? Four, nothing. Thank you very much. And, please, if you want to come forward, we'll swear you in. We're not letting you off the hook this quick. We got a lot of here. All right. Good. Okay, the basket bingo application, we have an application by the Friends of the Belgrade Library and the fire department to hold a basket bingo extraordinaire on, I don't know when it is.
Do we have a copy of it someplace?
Yeah, right here.
Just dropped it off yesterday.
Just got it, don't you pass it around, I don't look at it.
No, it's fine. I mean, if everything's filled
It's the
out,
same as last year, right?
Yeah.
if everything's filled out properly, I don't have a problem.
And I just look at it.
All the lines are filled in.
There you go.
Probably the same as last
Yeah,
year.
I'll make a motion, we accept
And
that.
I'll second that.
Made and seconded, any discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Good. I'm gonna pass it around, we can sign it, sign that, there are two of them. Two of them. Whoever signed. What's today's date? 17.
It's Friday, April 7th, is when they want to do it.
Okay. Next item, tax foreclosures.
So we have still one property that is up for foreclosure. I gave you a timeline. So if you give the directive tonight, I will send them the final certified letter tomorrow, trying to track them down. I haven't been able to find them. So it'll be advertised in the local papers over the weekend. Bids will be due back here March 2nd to be reviewed and potentially awarded by you folks on March 7th. And that means the person has, whoever the successful bidder is, has till April 6th to pay the money, and we'll give them claim deed.
We could find no record of this person. She's not, the letters have come back, is that right? And, so I'm not sure what you wanna do. I hate to see us get in another mess, but I don't know what else we can do.
Yeah. And, you Google the person, it does show other towns and residents, and I've called those other towns, and they have no record of it being anywhere.
Victoria Hannah, has anybody heard of Victoria Hannah? Yes, no.
So we don't know who she is or where she is at all.
No, we haven't, she owns a property in town.
Have we asked legal about this? What they recommend that, you had done paper signed. I'll sign first.
No, I did not.
I'm just wondering what they recommend. That might keep us out of a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know
I
we're all a
mean-
little gun shy after that.
Well, and I
last-
know, I mean, it may be just a phone call though, I mean, you can tell them what you got on it, and
Okay.
I think it'd be well worth the money spent.
Well, do they have social security record?
Do you have anything besides her name?
No.
No social, no anything?
No.
You contacted Augusta? She
Well,
doesn't?
no, we actually called Augusta because that is the last known address, and they have no record of it being a taxpayer or registration.
Are there structures on the property, or is it just land?
It's just rural property,
Just like
just rural property.
How big
It's
a
just
piece?
Just property?
3.8 acres.
It's down where Dennis's sketch.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's in the back, it's back property down
You wanna table it, can we table it for next meeting? Table it for
Yeah,
next meeting?
I think we ought to, you know, you might even call state police and ask them to run that and see if they can, or if you happen to know somebody that's in the police department, they might be able to run that name and see what comes up.
They can do that, but I'll
They might get
there. We need to just make sure with legal because the cost that we had to pay for the last episode was.
Should we make a motion to table?
I'll make that motion.
And second.
Made and seconded, discussion, all those in favor? It's tabled for nothing. Next item, proposed sign ordinance.
Thought you had planning board priorities on there.
I'm sorry, I went right by it. I wrote table right over it. All right, planning board priorities. Planning board is here, at least the important ones.
It's all of us, pretty much. So, we're here to find out if you have priorities, that may be in line with what we've talked about in the past, or if they differ. So in the past, what we've outlined, was to, first of all, accept applications for permits as a normal course of business, but also to update and revise a number of ordinances. And our first one that we tackled was the commercial review ordinance. Next, we wanted to tackle the shoreline zone ordinance, followed by the subdivision ordinance, and minimum lot size, and then eventually floodplain. All with the goal of providing clarity and to each of those ordinances, and to better align each one of those to the comprehensive plan recommendations that had come out from a couple of years ago. And we had shared with you folks a document that outlined where the different organizations or groups that had met within the comprehensive plan and identified areas within each of the ordinances and how we might best tackle those by revisions. Having said all that, and our I guess, plan of attack is to go after shoreline zone ordinance next.
Part of the dilemma is the sign ordinance. We had not planned on working on that, we didn't see it as a priority, and we can't do both. We can't work on two, we just don't have enough discretionary time when you take out the time required by permits during most of the year. And we think, and we voted unanimously to this effect, that shoreline zoning ordinance is a far greater priority for the town, in part because we issue many permits on the shoreline zone, and currently the ordinance is out of date and not consistent with state guidelines and not consistent with the comprehensive plan. That would be our druthers in terms of our own priorities, our own in-house priorities, in terms of what we think would be the greater benefit to the town. And then thereafter, the subdivision ordinance, which is grossly out of date at this point.
When do you see, the commercial development review ordinance has a section on signs, is that correct?
Yes, it has a sign standard.
And we had an ordinance suggestion to us, Mr. Lassard has drafted an ordinance. What do you think? I'm not saying that's the one we have to have, but if it was that or some other one, would that take the place of what's in the ordinance now, or just expand it, or what? How do you see that?
it would greatly expand it. It would expand it. The commercial development review ordinance, of course, is just newer, larger developments. So that's a subset of all development that the current sign standards would apply. A sign ordinance would apply to all signs, existing signs, all new signs, regardless of the size of the business or whatever. And so it would be it would be a more comprehensive, more expansive ordinance.
Yeah, it's much more overarching rather than just the applicability of the commercial review ordinance.
I suggest that we go along with their recommendation to do
Thank
the
you,
shoreline
Mr.
zoning
Thank you.
update first. And since they feel that that's all they would want to handle, that's all we should ask them to do at this time.
Thanks, Lee.
If the board felt, strongly that the town needs a sign ordinance, I mean, we could work that into our workload, it just wouldn't be right away. We'd have to wait a couple of years, because our experience with the commercial development review ordinance, that took us 18 months to, over almost 2 years actually, to finish, because we're squeezing it in between permits. And so it's the winter time that we have any time to speak of, blocks of time. In April, things will start picking up again, so, that's our window of opportunity. And this subdivision ordinance, we haven't given a great deal of thought of how to proceed with that yet, but we have decided that we would do the shoreline zoning ordinance in-house without any outside assistance. We, thank goodness we have Rich Baker on the board, we can do that.
Tremendous resource.
So, we're talking a number of years out, realistically.
And if I may just sort of lay the game plan out too, we had talked about, basically once April hits, is to divide up the monthly meetings that we have every month into, like we did before. Like one meeting in the first part of the month would be, we would be working on, the next ordinance revision things, and the second meeting of the month perhaps would be the one where we would be taking in applications, so. And it depends on volume of what we receive, but that might be a type of strategy, just so you understand what we're going to be doing.
I know, Jenny, you and Paul have spent a lot of time on this draft ordinance. What's your feeling on this?
Just to say, first of all, Paul has spent a lot of time on this ordinance.
Paul,
I don't want to take any credit, he's done a lot.
your hangers on.
I understand the workload, I do. I guess where I'm coming down on is if we could just have a session or so, and it doesn't have to be a meeting, if Paul and I could get together with, and I haven't talked to Paul at all about this, but if we could get together with, say, Peter or George, and just say, where are we deficient, what do we need to do, and then we could work forward on this, do a lot of the basic work, and we could do informally, try to get together with them. I understand the kind of complications, but I also believe that we need to do something about signs more quickly than perhaps 2 or 3 years down the road. That's just my personal feeling. Paul?
Well, the impetus behind my interest in it was the fact that the ordinance that is included in the development review is detrimental to development, period. And it would, in some cases, would be contrary to further development of the character of the town the way that it is. Let me just give you one example. Internally illuminated signs are allowed in the village districts. Do you really want that in Belgrade Lakes Village? I don't think so. I think that the character of that town does not really lend itself to internally lighted signs, and right away on the surface, that's a bad thing for trying to get future development. If you're only gonna deal with this 2 and 3 years from now, that village is gonna look a lot different. Could be Old Orchard Beach, and you can't do anything about it. So the other part about it is that in this ordinance, and when I started really fine tuning, there is an area in here in dealing with electronic signs, and I understand that the electronic signs are limited from south of Route 135, which is fine. It's certainly a recommended way to look at it. for future development for that, using that kind of sign, but it also limits the information to be text messages only on a solid color background. I think that's illegal. I think you can't legislate content. There is a section in the sign law, state of Maine sign law, that only allows electronic sign ordinance, the way that it's written in the statute, to be modified by rate of change. You either regulate all signs by size, placement, time, place, and manner of display. But as far as electronic signs, you either allow them or you don't. So, there is one town in Maine that allows only a single color sign. That has a lot in the way of regulating the kind of messages. But you can't say it has to be text versus putting a symbol. Like if you're a restaurant, international symbol is a plate with a knife and a fork. I wrote the law 10 years ago to get symbols put on there because it allows for easier communication. So that kind of jumped off the page. There's some real problems here that I don't think was addressed. And if you can't deal with it now, take this thing out and then deal with it separately. No ordinance, the way that it is written now, is gonna do less damage than what this is.
I'm sort of amazed that we have a citizen willing to sit down and do this, who's probably one of the most knowledgeable persons on signs in the state of Maine, and we can't give him a little time to sit down with him and talk about it, because it makes sense to me. I read it over today, it makes sense. It just kind of amazes me, to tell you the truth.
Peter, did you have something?
Hi, as you know, I'm on the planning board, and, I'm aware of the workload, just like everyone else is. And if, it could be done if the, select people are willing to give us the additional resources. I mean, I'm talking about staff. You come up with 2 or 3 people, go off doing a sub group to the planning board, just assigned specifically to this particular effort, and then come forward to the planning board, that'll work, and then, them be able to weigh in. But all the work gets done way before. It's like delegating the authority to run the business. You delegate, have some various committees, whatever, doing the projects, project manager, whatever you wanna call it, and then come to executive manager, make your recommendations, et cetera. So if you can do it that way. So that's the thought. Approach it that way.
Did I cut you off while we?
Well, I think that's a reasonable way to do it. If you're gonna have subcommittees develop the basis for an ordinance, they're talking about 3 or 4 different things. I've given you 90% of the ordinance. It needs public hearings, it needs other things to address questions by the public or fine tune things that I didn't think of when I wrote it. Well, that's fine, but I think you're 90% there. But I think that, all the other things probably need to have subcommittees too. I mean, what I did doesn't necessarily have to be the thing done, but, I've dealt with sign ordinances for 35 years, so I think I know how they work and what's needed in them. And you just need to ask the right questions besides formatting them properly. Like I said, I asked the town manager to see if it was legal to pull something out. You've already put this in a warrant item. Is it within your purview to be able to eliminate this from the printed document? You can't do it? So section 12 is gonna be a problem.
Well, it can, if your draft or any other is adopted at some point, then it can be pulled out. It can replace what's there.
Well, absolutely, but like I said, if it's 2 or 3 years, it's gonna be a lot of damage.
I see a hand over here, George.
Yeah, just so we're clear, the board unanimously doesn't agree with Mr. Lessard and his assessment of the impact of the commercial development review ordinance with the sign standard. By way of example, our predecessors and us have approved slightly over 30 projects under the commercial development review ordinance. No one, including when Dollar General applied, has ever asked for a variance from the sign ordinance, the sign standard. It's not an ordinance, the sign standard within the commercial development review ordinance. Even Dollar General didn't find it oppressive. or the, so there's that, and the thing that's important to understand is if the plan would, if we proceeded with the sign ordinance, the plan certainly was to do exactly what you just described, Michael, and that is to have it supersede, remove the sign standard from the commercial development review ordinance and have it superseded by any town-wide sign ordinance. The, one of the legal questions you get into though is, and this was, you know, advice we got while we're developing the commercial development review ordinance is if you have a sign standard for one type of, like say the village area is designated in the comprehensive plan, can you have different sign standards for different villages in the town without changing the comprehensive plan? That is a legitimate legal question. I don't necessarily disagree with Mr. Lassard's assessment that there shouldn't be any internal electronic sign, internally or lighted signs in Belgrade Lakes Village, but how do you do that without likewise having a similar standard in the depot or in North Belgrade? There's a legal question there about that. I've done a little checking with respect to Mr. Lassard's assessment of the legality or illegality of signs like what the town has. I don't think that would pass muster amongst most municipal attorneys. Bernstein Shore did a very nice sort of newsletter for municipalities a couple of years ago on signs. When you cross the barrier of violating the First Amendment, that's not the barrier. The barrier is when you regulate the message that's on the sign, not what color it is or how often it flashes or any of that. For example, or the sign of the sign.
First Amendment would pertain to the message, not the color. I mean, the color is not, the First Amendment doesn't specify what color the sign has to be.
Right.
It's your, it says you have a right to say what you want to say.
Right, yeah, even if it's offensive to people.
Yeah.
The other thing is if you have different standards for different entities, for example, you cannot require a smaller sign for a church, a different size sign for a church than you do for, say, a business. There's one town in Maine that got into legal trouble for that very reason. So that's where the line is drawn legally. I just simply disagree with Mr. Lassard based on my research.
Have you read his ordinance, his draft ordinance?
We only got it a couple of weeks ago, so we haven't even had a chance to sit down as a board to review it yet. I have personally, it's a good first start. It's got a long way to go. It's nowhere close to 90% complete. I would give it more like 50% complete. It's not written as an ordinance. It needs to be reorganized. It's not user-friendly. It needs a lot of work, and it's really a question of whether Mr. Lassard is willing to do that work for the planning board and for you. And just so you know, when we did the commercial development review ordinance, and Michael, you were at this meeting, at the public informational meeting, we didn't have great attendance, but we did have somebody turn out who was very vociferous about his view on signs. And his view was that we shouldn't have any digital or internally illuminated signs at all in town, anywhere. We compromised. We allowed them in those areas that are designated by the comprehensive plan as the areas that we want commercial development and commercial growth. Sometimes you have to compromise to, try to find that sweet spot.
Denny?
You know, I've known these guys for years, and I have a great deal of respect for them. I'm not gonna challenge anything that they say. I do think, though, that we could, working with Paul, we could come up with an ordinance that would meet the standard. I have no problem working with Paul on it, as I've said before. Paul does a lot of the work. What we need to do is, essentially what we need to do is to find out the deficiencies, at least, in some manner, so that we can address them. I recognize that it's too late to get into the warrant article and change that. You'd have to have another public hearing and all that. Delay it, and I understand, they've done a lot of work on this. This is a volunteer board. They put tremendous hours in. I don't think I can work on it. I don't want to be on the planning board.
There's an opening.
But I think that, you know, personally, I think that a sign ordinance is needed. I'm concerned about some of the things that could happen to the character of the village. And not only this village, but in town where we want to protect that kind of rural character. So we could debate all night about legalities and all of that, but I'd just like to have an opportunity to
This is not
to
the
work
place-
through the
yeah,
problems.
This is not the place for that kind of debate anyway. I've heard two things suggested. I don't know what you all think of it, everybody. One is that you have a meeting with Mr. Lassard so he can discuss what he wants to discuss, what needs to be changed. Did I understand that correctly?
Well,
Well, that was my suggestion.
What was your suggestion?
I
The other thing was,
made 18 pages worth of changes.
Yeah.
well, if nothing else, I could tell you what their problems are with it, then maybe you have something, you know, to work for. And the other suggestion was Peter's, that we have we appoint a subcommittee of sorts to the planning board to give you more manpower to work to address this one particular problem. I kind of agree that to go a couple of years is unfortunate. And I'm sympathetic with your problem. Because as Denny says, you're volunteers and you've got a lot on your plate right now. But it's something I think needs to be addressed more than a couple of years from now. Yes, Paul?
Assuming this passes, because it's gonna be voted on Friday,
Yeah.
right? Most people aren't even gonna read this, and they won't understand it if they do. So assuming it passes, because it got recommendations from a couple of boards, if you're unable to remove one section prior to the vote, are you able to apply a moratorium to a law that's been enacted after the vote?
That's a very bold.
The moratorium on what, sign placement?
On section 12.
You don't
of
enforce the law.
I beg your pardon?
You don't enforce the law for a period of time.
Well, then,
It's a moratorium.
Well,
Yeah.
that's right, you don't enforce
Yes,
it until
that's
something
right.
happens.
well, the moratorium would usually prohibit, putting in signs, since we're talking about signs, putting in new signs, because there's a moratorium on those signs.
Well, right now, there is no
Yeah,
ordinance.
there's nothing now.
The state law.
Just state law.
I don't know, that's something we'd have to think about before we.
Well, I think if the voter, to me, the legislative body dictates what's done and what's not. And I don't think we have the authority to override. If that's approved, it's approved. You can't then turn around and say, well, we're not gonna do that. So,
You put it out the vote, but that's about it.
The
Yeah,
only
we
thing
could
can
go
do is
back
come
on.
back, right, with a new ordinance or revisions or whatever, and ask them again, okay, here's the change, will you approve this one? We can't do it now, what is in place now is gonna go before the town on the 17th, it's on the written ballot.
Yeah, but we might be able to do something when we have when we do the school budget.
That's later on in the year,
I
June.
Could have
know,
another
but I mean,
referendum
we could
then.
address, we
It'll
could
be
make, we
June-ish or
could
so,
make an
yes.
amendment and offer it to the voter to accept that
But
amendment.
but not at this meeting.
Not at this, no, that's done. Yeah.
Rich, did you have something?
I was gonna say, even if you were able to take it out of the existing ordinance, you're still gonna be worse off than having it in there, because you're eliminating any sign standards. And my thinking is, village, with the existing standards, which are no less restrictive, in the last several years, hasn't turned into Old Orchard Beach or whatever was referenced earlier. I don't see it all of a sudden, because this ordinance passed, somebody's gonna be running down there and throwing up a bunch of lighted signs in the village. I just don't see the emergency here.
Yeah, the village is changing, there are more merchandise.
We have businesses moving out, businesses moving in.
As you say, so far, we haven't seen the honky tonks or
And if
flashing
you
signs.
took it out, they'd be able to put the signs in anyway.
Yeah, yeah, so. I cut you off.
No, you're fine.
Yes, Peter.
I was also thinking about the importance of how to administer any future ordinance coming in. You know, you have some kind of an application process that you have to consider. And say that all worked out, that would be a layer somewhere for the town to handle, as well as at the other end, some kind of enforcement end. So, I'm not sure where the bandwidth that would come at either end to do anything with that. But if we're gonna go down this road and have this all in place, we have to, I think, be mindful of that.
Where are we? I don't think we can make any change, that's clear, we can't make any changes before this meeting coming up on the 17th or 18th. Whether or not,
Ernie has a comment.
Well, I just, basically, we have something that seems to be receptive by both parties, that maybe we start a subcommittee to at least start the process, to communicate and then come back with how do you want to move forward. We can't do nothing now, it's done. What's in place is gonna go before the voters, so how do we get to a point to maybe where we can do something, if not in June or in November, and we can maybe address it next town meeting. But I guess at least if we open that door and ability to allow like a subcommittee and work with the planning board and move it, and have that move forward based on the planning board's direction, I think, then
Sounds good, I mean, we'd be happy to meet with you guys, come into a meeting and talk about the,
Deficiency.
right, the current state of this and how we'd like to see it go towards other ordinances and have it structured in such a way that would be presentable to the town.
Just one question. I know that this is within the business development ordinance. Once you've written down an ordinance, regardless as to whether or not it's set aside as a separate document or within the business development ordinance. The business development ordinance is townwide. It seems to me that you don't have to go before the planning board in order for this ordinance to apply. In other words, any sign going within any of the districts that are designated must follow the written ordinance, whether you go before the planning board or not. So it becomes a separate document no matter what. So this written ordinance in the development ordinance does not require planning board action. It will take effect on all signs because they are specified within the districts.
upon approval, the usual practice, however, that something like this comes up, it's assigned to somebody or some group to administer it. And this is, since, at least for now, it's part of the commercial development review ordinance, that's within the planning board's purview, planning board and the code enforcement officer. But I see what you're saying, if we had just passed your draft ordinance, there's nothing saying you have to be involved with it. I don't know that it's precedent that this board would be willing to go on at this time, yes.
Well, I would just say that in order to, if that were the case, then someone would have to be out there, it'd be Gary or someone enforcing it. I haven't talked to Paul about this at all, I understand where he's coming from, but it's part of the commercial development review, at least you get a chance to look at the whole development, and then you can see whether or not it's complying with the ordinance, and you can tell them at that point in
It
time.
seems to me the sign is gonna be part of something bigger, it's not just, people aren't necessarily just gonna come in after a sign, they want in front of their business or something like that, so.
Well, that's my case though, is that it should be applied as townwide in every case, but then you need an enforcement document or something that, how do you apply this? I mean, you should charge $50 or more per application to enforce it because somebody's gonna have to get paid to do it. And who knows, it's just, it needs to be enforced.
What do you fellows think of,
to me, Mike, I think we're way off track here. Well, what we need to do, we need to decide, let them talk about it, and then come back with a final, this is how we wanna move forward, and then the end result, we can thrash it out and decide what the benefit is.
And that should be talking between the two.
Those two
Yeah.
groups.
Yes,
not us.
absolutely.
Yeah, why don't we start that way? Get together and talk it out a little bit. If you come back and you say, we wanna do something, but we need to expand the group or something like that, then we can address that. But, I mean, that's something we probably would be amenable to, after some thought's given to it. Is that acceptable for now? Okay, I don't think.
I think, if I may, I
No.
think it's a good way to start the process.
Yeah, it's not the one.
I'm having a little difficulty, you know, I'm really trying to learn what the process is, and so far I'm coming up with nada. Because it isn't clear what the process is to sort of move this forward. I mean, we give the planning board the ability to review and redo, you know, and update the ordinances. And then, am I to understand, and excuse my arguments, but am I to understand that anybody can sort of come forward with an ordinance and lay it in front of the people? Is that,
No, it has to go before any ordinance to be adopted has to go before the town.
The planning board, as far as I'm concerned, is in place to uphold the ordinances that are there. If somebody wants to come up with an ordinance, the people in the town are the ones in all reality that have to vote on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Once it's voted, we'll uphold
I
it.
agree 100%.
I really don't care
and how
who
does
writes
it
the
get
ordinance.
to the people?
There you go.
Which
How
is
does it get to the
coincidental.
people? Do they
That's my
legislate?
man.
We put it on the warrant.
Right,
at
it
town
goes on
meeting.
warrants. There's town meetings involved pertaining to it,
Yeah,
which
and hearings.
attendance is very low on all of them.
But it's
Yeah.
November.
And it's, you know, it's put out in the papers and it's posted. But as far as I'm concerned, being on the planning board, I'm on my third term, I was sworn in to uphold the ordinance, not write it.
Okay, we're getting off track and we're taking up time.
Sorry,
Okay, no, it's all right. I'll be glad to talk to you about it later.
No, I'm all for it, Michael. If somebody wants to write the ordinance, yeah, cut down the size, not 7 pages of different types of sign, so that it's not mind-boggling, because if you have too much to write, the people aren't gonna read it.
Okay, that's part of what we're suggesting you get together and discuss. Okay, but you can't really do much about it tonight. Okay, so get together, discuss, come back to us with the idea of taking it before a town meeting, either one in June or there's one in November too, isn't there?
Yep.
June or November, if you can. If you can't make November, then we'll do it next year in March. Yes.
Not to complicate this at all. That's my last statement, and I'm not trying to refute him, I just trying to add a little bit to the conversation. My understanding is part of the planning board's responsibility is to review ordinances and update them and produce them, if directed by the board, right?
Particularly in ordinances like this that are, this ordinance is borders on being zoning.
Yes. So that's my only comment.
I think by you working together, and I think, the planning board, I don't care who writes the ordinance, but it has to go through the planning board. They know how everything meshes together, they worked with it as a group. And you know, if there's something in there that is gonna upset something else, then they probably would be the ones to have the eyes to see it. So by you guys getting together, working together, and then you come up with a end result we can move forward with.
Okay, consider that. I don't think it requires a vote. Moving on. Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul. I guess we took care of 2 of the things.
Government always works on something, just not this one.
Next is the,
Just not this one. I mean, this is simple. I can't believe it. I'm just amazed. That something so simple can be so complex and arduous.
all right, the next one, apparently there's a new trust fund, Robert A. Gusley.
Gustily.
I'm assuming it's covered. All right, Howard, you wanna talk about this stuff that's happening?
Okay, the agenda item is the Guptill Trust.
Right.
That was one that we had not had a lot of information on. We contacted the family of Robert Guptill, some of the family of Robert Guptill, and also looked at the documents that were in the 1986 town report, which is when the town accepted being the trustee for the fund. Kerry identified in the audit report from '87 where the money came in. Upon talking with both Mary Palange, who is the niece of Guptill, and Don Hammond, who's the nephew of Guptill, they don't feel there was ever any legal document creating the trust, that they just basically gave the money to the town, and the town, in a town warrant article, accepted being the trustee. So we've put this together, the statement together that I believe you all have a copy of, to put into the folder with the trust funds to clarify that information. I guess, are there any other questions on Guptill?
Well, in reading it, and I didn't spend a lot of time, but I just think that one section in here is probably something that's not necessary. It says the budget committee recommends the town treasurer report to the Robert A. Guptill Historical Trust Fund Committee as early in January as possible, the net earnings of the fund for the previous year. The committee shall then present a proposed budget to the select board. I would think that we prepare the warrants in November, like we normally do, and then once we have the number, it can be given to the budget committee, or the committee on the Guptill trust fund, to say these are the dollars you can put into that article. So the article should be put together before then. I don't think we should wait until January to write the article. There's no purpose in that. If the article is going to be, the only thing missing from the article is the dollars that, based on the formula, would come from the report you get from the treasurer. So I don't know why we need to wait. I guess I'm not sure.
Because we don't know, because the earnings don't, it's the accumulation until December 31st of the earnings. So they wouldn't have a number to build a budget on. Would they?
This isn't it. This is only an article that we're gonna give them a certain amount of dollars. And the dollar can be inserted in there anytime in January.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, our budget and our articles are all kind of put together, and we should just do all the articles like we do, and then we deal with the dollar amounts in January as they become available. We just insert the dollar amount. To wait until January to give the budget committee a report from the earnings doesn't have anything to do with writing the article.
But I understand what Howard's saying is that we don't know that number until after the year closes, which would mean it would be in January sometime before we know what to put in the warrant.
That's what Ernie said.
You did, I misunderstood you, I'm sorry.
There's nothing wrong with writing the warrant, but earlier than that, I'm not saying that we have to wait until January to draft the warrant.
Well, it is saying that. I mean, that's what you're saying here.
Yeah, that's what it does say.
And basically, the report needs to go, I agree that since the committee that oversees this historical trust fund can look at that and say, okay, based on the formula that you presented and has been approved, these are the dollar amounts that can go into that article.
Right.
At that time, but the article shouldn't be, this is basically stating the article be written in January. That's the way I read it. But
Okay, I didn't intend I intended that the committee would not know what the amount is that they're gonna have to spend until the year-end report would come in January.
yeah. But probably it just seems to be awful wordy for it. That's fine, you don't, it works, whatever.
Jack,
Yeah. I think that the town, in the long run, can save itself an awful lot of Mickey Mouse if it considers, first of all, Guptal, we're talking about the Guptal Trust, but what applies to the Guptal Trust really should also apply the same way to all of the sub-accounts in the unified trust account, because it's the same procedure, the same sort of procedure. Why? Because the town can write an article so that it's a valid article until it's rescinded or amended somehow by the town. Why not consider, at least, an article that says something like this? To see if the town will vote to release amounts up to the annual earnings, dividends, and interest from the current year's Belgrade Unified Trust account to the authorized recipients of the Unified Trust account, sub-accounts, during the following year, in proportion to such sub-accounts, upon written request of the authorized recipients and approved by the Belgrade Select Board. Should such annual earnings exceed annual requests by authorized recipients, such difference shall remain permanently invested within the principals of the respective UTA sub-accounts and not carried forward to future years. The town office shall maintain an up-to-date record of recipients authorized to receive annual pro rata sub-account earnings and shall record in each annual town report for the UTA in total and each of its sub-accounts the following in tabular form that is consistent and audited from year to year, which is essentially what has already been shown on this sheet that was on that table there, which I think is a sheet prepared by Bar Harbor Trust. But why can't the town pass an article like that and set it up so that this can happen automatically from one year to the next? I don't think the process of going through approval of up to 1/4 of last year's expenditure makes any sense in this case, because what is available for your approval, the board's approval, is fixed in the article. It's fixed in the article. It's the earnings, it's up to the earnings and the dividends. If it's any less than that that's requested, the rest of it just stays in the fund. And you do it once, and it covers all of these things, and you don't have to keep revisiting it year to year. It just happens. The requests still come to the board to sign off on the final approval to transfer the money. But it's just one statement that covers all of this.
I like it.
So, you're proposing that to be,
I don't know whether this year it's too late to do it this year, or
that is too late this year.
or start it next year.
well,
Well, are you trying to insert that language, Jack, into the guidelines here, that this is the law, but
the paragraph you were reading at the beginning, I think.
It's basically changing, the way we handled it was writing up policies for each of the funds.
And that's fine.
It included the detail of what I think Jack is proposing in terms of an overall statement to eliminate the warrant articles, the individual warrant articles for each trust on an annual basis. I guess I would like to, and he's just proposed that. We haven't really discussed it as a committee. I have a hard time responding to something that involved just hearing it once in a meeting situation like this. I would like to consider that idea. I think one of the more fundamental issues that we need to deal with is dealing with how the funds are going to be allocated, because we've been going on the basis of one philosophy throughout all the documents that we've prepared for you. And I think Jack is proposing a different philosophy in terms of how the funds are expended.
No, it's basically the same philosophy, except to.
It just leaves out the fact that you don't have to wait till January to get the figures and all that good stuff. You're kind of smoothing the process through.
Well, I appreciate that it feels that way. One of the issues is the the amount of money, I mean, where the fees are gonna be taken out of, where the fees are gonna be considered, in terms of how they're gonna be treated relative to the principal or the earnings. The other thing is that the reason for the 25% business was a town guideline relative to what we do with spending of all the funds, and an indication when talking to Melanie that the town can't spend money until town meeting unless there's something that says they've got permission to do it, and that's why the article is in every year to spend up to 25% of the previous year's budget between January 1 and town meeting. If it applies to everything else, why doesn't it apply to the trust funds? That's what Melanie's comment to me was, which is the reason for that to be in there. I'm not trying to make things more complicated. I'm just, who's driving the train?
Is this something
No,
needs
no,
to be tabled?
I think it's perfectly valid to do what we do with spending not more than 25% up until the town meeting of the town's money that's raised through taxation. The proposal here is to recognize that there's a limit to how much can be taken out and to specify what that amount is. It's already done. As of the end of the year, or the beginning of the next year, you know how much money is available to spend. So you can spend it January 2nd, why not?
Because it hasn't been approved by the town to spend it.
Well, you can bring the request to the select person, they approve it.
I don't believe we can do anything about it this year.
I understand.
Okay? But we can, before the next time it comes up before us, we can spend some time looking into the suggestion, looking into if it causes any problems, if it'll solve any problems, and then come back before we put it before the town the next year. Is that agreeable?
I
Yes.
table this and let the budget committee go make a decision, come back with their recommendation as a committee.
Well, if you table it, what are you tabling? You're tabling a suggestion, or you're tabling this document?
Well, I guess you don't have to table it,
Yeah,
I would probably just
I think
have the budget committee go make,
we'll make the suggestions.
Go make
for the
happy with
next
each
time
other.
around, for the next time around, right? Yeah. And I think what Jack has to say, there's some merit there, but I'd feel uncomfortable just making the change tonight anyway, not that we could.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So what we're being asked to approve here tonight is this document, is that correct, Howard?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you
That was-
look back at the other two, the language is pretty much the same. And John C. Stevens and the cemetery trust funds, so that paragraph you were looking at, right?
Yeah, next page.
The other thing that I gave you was the other documents which had been talked about and discussed, and you'd made some changes, and when I went to Anthony and asked him for copies of the final reports, final decisions that were voted on, the copies had things like draft written across them and had things that were inconsistent. And so I tried to go back through and get the language straightened out, even to the point where, as much as we talked about designated and undesignated, the the auditor has turned around, and that's no longer the appropriate terms. The term now is spendable, non-spendable and restricted. And so I tried to clean that wording up and have a document which we could put in each of the files for the trust that was consistent with the wording and your wishes. One of the things, there were two things that were significant that I found in going back through. One was that there was a date error on one of them, referencing December twice, and it should have been January once and then December the other time. And the other thing was that we decided to take out anything about burial fees in the cemetery document, and in the cemetery document, the paragraph about burial fees was not removed, and so in the revised one, I had removed that. And so I gave you copies of the, the last things that you approved with red lines through the items that were not, that I thought should be changed, and then a clean copy that could be put in the file with your approval tonight on those documents. If, whatever your wishes are to deal with that, I just thought it was better to clean that all up, so there was a clean document in the file reflecting both the correct language and the changes which you wanted to have, and an indication that it was approved tonight, and therefore, when somebody looked at it later down the road, they would have that information all together and not be looking at a file that said draft and proposed on it, and where does it ever come out to be finished?
Okay.
So that's why I presented those, but, you know, again, your choice as to what you want to do with it.
Let me ask you a quick question here. Is the Guptill money used for promotion and appreciation of history? Do they spend it on anything other than something to do with history? Do you have any idea?
Can they spend it on
No, I
anything?
said, do they spend it on the promotion and appreciation of history? That's what it's supposed to be.
Not that I'm aware of. The very limited reports that there have been indicate that everything that has been spent has been done with history associated to it.
That's
And
what I
that's the school's understanding.
Yeah, that they know they have to, it's supposed to.
They just have, right, they haven't done anything with it for a couple of years, which I'm not trying to broadcast. But that's, and that was at the family's wishes. But the intended use of the fund, I don't think has been any question.
Okay.
There's been some ignorance on the part of people not knowing what was supposed to happen with it, but that was not by
It wasn't malicious.
anything other than omission.
All right.
Comment?
Yes, please.
What I would suggest for tonight here, that we agree that the nomenclature that shows on the Bar Harbor statements for the individual sub-accounts be the same nomenclature that we use in these documents.
That shouldn't be a big deal, should it?
I'm not sure which particular parts of the nomenclature you're talking about.
Right up here, here's scholarship fund, a small, we decided
That-
we're gonna use scholarship, or we're gonna use attainment. Or
Academic
Yes,
award,
academic
yeah.
award.
Those titles need to be.
those titles need to conform with what you've done here.
Right, the bank needs to change, not us change to the bank.
Right, that's what I'm
Okay,
saying.
I thought you were saying it the other way around.
The bank needs to change.
All right, so we need to give approval for the Guptill Historical Trust, the one we're talking about at the moment. The Cemetery Trust, that was never approved. Did we approve that one?
Yeah,
We did.
you've done all of them except for.
You've done everything but the Guptill.
So what we're gonna approve tonight, assuming it's agreeable with you gentlemen, is the document entitled Robert A. Guptill Historical Trust Fund. Any other discussion on the matter? Okay, you make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to
And
approve it.
second.
Need a second. No other discussion, all those in favor? 4-0, thank you. Thank you for your work, appreciate it. You okay now? You
All
look
right,
like-
do you wanna work with the revised ones, or are you gonna leave it with the ones that were in error?
I suggest that we have a special sit-down and go over all the stuff
Yeah,
again.
I wanna read it over myself.
We go over everything, and then whatever needs to be corrected, let's just do each one of them.
This,
The wording, if the wording is wrong or whatever.
this document we have is the revised one, is it not?
The document
The
for,
Guptill.
What's the Guptill?
Guptill was clean to begin with.
Okay, that's what we voted on tonight.
Yeah.
The others we voted on in the past,
Put the zeros in.
but there are errors in it, so we'll have to.
Well,
look at
the
that.
errors are not huge.
No.
Yeah.
They're not.
There's some, some of the descriptive terms are wrong, so.
We can take that up at another time, not, we don't have to do that tonight. We don't have to make any changes before the town meeting, actually, so.
No,
It's nothing that's
No, there's not, it's just, if the document needs to be accurate, and we need to sign them again. And I guess we're gonna do the corrections and,
Well, were they,
I don't know, that's what you.
I don't think they were ever signed to begin with. Because the ones that he had, when I asked him for copies, were copies that didn't have the corrections made on them,
Well,
and,
we did vote on it, though.
yes, you did.
Yeah.
We didn't get around to signing it, perhaps.
I don't know what the procedure is for that.
I'm not sure either.
Well, anything we approve that's gonna be an ongoing policy and procedure, the select board signs off on it, and then it's dated as to when we approved that process. So those all should have our signature under there with a date of when we approved that. Because that tells you how we're gonna do it, right?
Okay, well, that's why I said,
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, we just need to, I think we just need to regroup and address every one now that, there was a lot of confusion about all that stuff. So now that we've got it down pat, we just need to make sure everything is in order. And then we put the final approval, I guess, on it again and sign it.
You signed two of them, what was the one that they
I
didn't?
think that the two cemetery, there was two cemetery ones, I thought, and they were signed as far as I remember, and the one that didn't get signed was the DC Stevens one, which,
I don't recall signing.
yeah, that was like the most recent one.
We just need to make it right at some
We
point.
just need to make sure we
Yeah.
did, that's all. If we didn't, then we need to do it.
Well, we voted on it, we can bring it to the next meeting, we'll sign it.
Yep.
Yeah. Right with everybody?
Yep,
Yeah, well, we can go over these and.
Yes,
can I ask you one other question?
yes.
There was a concern when we did the warrant that the amount of money that we were gonna take out of the trusts to supplement or reduce the tax burden were not clear at that time, and we needed to summarize that. I've done that, I think correctly, but what would you like for information on that? This is in preparation for town meeting, it's not something that has to be done tonight, but I just, do you want me to give you this information and let you look it over? And
Yeah, we'll handle it better.
I think that
Is it something we can, just handle real quick, or is it,
well, these are the amounts,
in other words, it's gonna take some thought on our part, and we do it tonight.
if you want an explanation for how I came up with the numbers, I'll be happy to give you that. I don't know what your pleasure is.
We're gonna have to amend that article on the floor, why don't we just make that a topic of one of the meetings?
Okay, well,
That we can have, so we
I
have-
know that that's what's gonna have to happen, and that's what this was,
You probably need that the night that Jay comes to go over all the articles with who's gonna speak, and that might be the time to bring this up, and Claire's gonna come in.
okay, well, if you wanna challenge this or question how these numbers were arrived at, or do anything different, or leave it till then, that's fine.
I think, if I may, I think, Howard, it would be useful to have a discussion of how you propose to handle the fees, and make sure everybody is on the same
That's correct.
track.
Okay. Anything else?
move on.
All right. Next item is
Thank you.
damaged mailboxes.
Mr. Hadley came in last week with his invoice for $300 for his 2 damaged mailboxes, and are requesting to know what you folks are gonna do about it.
I say we do nothing.
I second that.
It's winter in Maine.
It,
Damn it.
and I understand where he's coming from, it is federal property, but you know what?
What's federal property?
The mailbox. Once it's on, up there, it's federal property. That's
Well, you have to prove malicious vandalism to get anywhere with that.
absolutely.
Which is kind of what he's indicating that he thinks it is, that the guy is really aiming and,
With the wet snow that we've had in the
Yep.
last couple
Yep.
storms, you could take a telephone pole down.
plus his is not the only ones, there's
No.
others all over
You
the
look at
place
them,
that
they're all
are bad,
bent,
yes.
and
We ended up buying every mailbox in town.
you don't do that.
Nope,
So I did do a little research, and of course, there is no liability on the part of the
That's
town.
right.
I had Morris go down, both mailboxes are very much so in the right of
Mhm.
way.
oh, they are in the right of way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are. just trying to remember, because I didn't reread this, but I think he was asking that we implement or develop some sort of policy for mailboxes or, you know, installation or structures or something like that. And if we do that, of course, the thing we have to be worried about is the, I don't remember the term, but it's deadly fixed object, I think is what it's called. You know, you're not supposed to have anything over the size of a 4x4 post. Anything larger or more permanent than that is considered a deadly fixed object.
It's gotta be something that can be cut off
Yeah.
because if a car hits it.
Yeah.
It sounds like something he should be talking to Morris about anyway. Morris is the road commissioner.
Yeah, but he doesn't have anything to do with mailboxes.
No, I realize that, but I mean,
I would expect every year mailboxes get clipped.
I plowed for 7 years and I'm telling you, you clip them, the
Yep.
snow hits them, they,
well, you know, if the driver went out of his way, I mean, if it was back on Bruce's property and he went up and he drove up on the lawn to get at the mailbox,
that's malicious.
that's malicious. But if it's just in the right of way,
We need to vote on this?
It's where they gotta be. I mean, yeah, that's where they gotta be. They won't walk on private
I
property.
guess we should have an official response to his letter.
I'll make a motion, we do nothing.
Second that.
Made and seconded, discussion. All in favor? Or nothing?
So you want me to send them a letter? And
Yeah, I would-
We discussed it and there's no consultation needed. I'll say it nicer than that, but.
Yeah, so, yeah, don't quite put it, we're not gonna screw you. Something nicer than that. All right.
Do you want me to cite these resources that I had?
Absolutely, that's what it is.
Yeah,
And
sure.
we're not doing it on
Nice.
purpose.
All right. RSU 18, cost sharing committee.
Andy Cook has gone out and is in the process of getting that committee to reconvene, and he's probably gonna get it to reconvene. I don't know what good that'll do. But he has very strong feelings that some of the towns are gonna change their mind. I don't know if that's true or not. This is only for the board's information. They're probably gonna reconvene, and Dennis and I will go back along probably with Becky and perform our task again. Just so you all know.
What makes him think he can get them to change their mind?
Well, lots of things, but one is Belgrade still has some feelings about pulling out of RSU 18, heavily impact the other three towns. He'll use whatever he can to get them to reconvene and reconsider. So we'll just have to wait and see, and I'm done. I said 3 minutes, it took me 2.
I wanna hear that again.
I'm not saying it
Could you say it
again.
one more time? I didn't
I'll
get
just
it.
say
all.
it once.
Put that down, you gotta nail the end of it.
Once.
Okay.
I got it.
Oh, warrant,
Has anybody ever put in for damaged mailboxes before?
oh, they tried to
Periodically?
hit us before.
Yeah?
I can tell you, yes, not maybe, yes. There is
Any
times
towns?
that you move over too far because there's a car coming.
I understand.
it.
I-
We go back and fix,
Yeah.
we used to go back and fix them then, if we you know. But,
Some of them sit out there pretty far.
well, they do, and they should be on chains, there should be a lot done to them.
Mine swings around if you hit it.
That's right, I used to see how many times I could get it to go around.
Oh, God, you
Warrant
didn't do that.
warrant number
I didn't say
13,
that.
warrant number 13, $543,466.43.
I'll second that.
Were you trying to get us to move on or anything?
Yeah.
You didn't want to hear that.
What did I miss? I'm afraid to ask.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Hey, you got anything on the warrant?
Questions?
Yeah.
What do I do with my glasses? Yeah, I got 48 pages of yellow books.
48 pages.
I had no questions.
I think that's a good price on getting that brush truck painted. and
What is the
repaired.
big Tex
$1,500
trailer world? And why do we take our snow blower there to have it fixed? The snow blower, is that the snow blower we just bought from,
Don't have any idea.
Probably had to overhaul the stupid thing.
That's actually misuse now, I believe.
was that what it's called now?
Yeah, it's been sold.
Oh, okay.
It probably had a flat tire of $49.98. Probably fuel to get it there and
Was it
back.
big, what'd you say, Big Tex or something, trailer
Big
sales?
Tex trailer
I
world.
don't know,
What do you think it is?
Yeah, all right. Now, the
I
other
wonder
one,
if it might have been made a mistake, it might have been the snowplow repaired too. That was
As I
bad.
say, I think it was the snowplow.
Snowplow,
I
yeah.
was just trying to see which
You had it down there
nomenclature
twice.
up here should be changed.
all right, Central Maine Power has Farmington Road, the park. What is Farmington Road? Is that 27 North? What do they use power at the park for?
The dam.
No, the one down below it says Main Street Dam.
Light?
Is there a light in the park? I don't think there is.
Not that I know of.
Farmington Road Park, I don't know that I've seen that before.
No, in the past, they've had it there, Farmington Road, but we've always assumed it was the dam, but now I see they list the dam separately. That's something I look into. And it's only $15, but $15 is $15.
And it's probably electricity to light someplace.
Probably, but I don't remember a light in there.
You'd think they'd use the same ones for the dam. Same
Oh,
ones.
and the only other one I want to ask about, it says Lambert's Auto Body restoring Chevy. What Chevy?
That's the brush truck that they're building.
Oh, at the fire department.
Yes.
Oh, okay. It doesn't say fire, oh, yes, it does down there. All right, I'm happy. I got others, but it's not worth taking time.
From what I see, they did a nice job too, so, you know.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Good. What's the warden's report?
Alright.
1 year subscription, $75. Who gets that?
No idea what page you on.
It's 00389, page 8.
Page 8.
Yeah.
That's next, that's basically the last, almost the last page. Warden's report. It's public safety, so.
Yeah, it's fire department.
Okay.
That's probably,
Is that the online burning? permit?
yes, that would be my guess.
Okay, good. I'm happy. Have you voted?
No?
Okay, thank you for waiting. All right, any other discussion on the warrant? All those in favor? 4-0, thank you.
That was easy.
Now try to beat my time, Carrie.
You what?
Want Carrie to beat my time.
Yeah, Terry, make it short. We don't have much.
It depends on how many questions you have. So the audit's done, everything came out hunky-dory, looks good. I have the short report done, I'm waiting for the full audit. I will email the short reports to you guys. I have applied for, excuse me, a $2 million TAN. The bids will be due back on February 17th. I sent it to the same 7 banks you always send it to. There is no sign in the garage. I've been working with an agency called FedCap. They are.
I can't hear you.
I've been working with an agency called FedCap. They
Okay.
are the ones that are working with Aspire people to get them into volunteer opportunities. And I asked all the department heads if they had any needs for a volunteer, and Kenny stepped up and said, yeah, I'll take one. So we are going to be a site for volunteers for them potentially if they find something.
What about here in the office? You don't need any volunteers?
We have too much confidential information.
I want somebody to sweep up.
And then you asked for the results of the November number 1 question results. It was 588 yes, 799 no, and 11 were blank. And a quick reminder about the governance meeting Thursday night at the middle school.
So the 799 no was actually, it defeated if it was Belgrade, so.
I thought it was approved.
Well, that's what we was told, it was,
Yeah, I thought it
It
was
was
two
a couple
numbers I
hundred.
saw.
Wow,
that's the actual count.
500 to 700?
588 to 799.
All right, so remember that thing I put on the,
It still don't
Oh,
matter.
and this is from Bar Harbor Trust. We got this in the email today. I asked her for an example so you can fine tune what you want the sub-accounting to look like. So if you can give me recommendations, comments, questions, concerns, whatever, I can get back to her, and this is what the sub-accounting will look like. Now I'm done.
It's pretty nice.
I have a question for you though.
Yes.
Has the water passed test yet?
Still has less than 2% bacteria. I dumped a gallon of bleach in the well, he did the first thing with the tank, I'm still trying to isolate it.
Did he, how much water have you run since you dumped the bleach in? Have you dumped another gallon in?
No, I have
Put
not.
another one right to it.
Okay.
but don't take the test. Have them run the water. Stick a hose out back, run it for half a day.
Because we want to go skating.
No, run it on the one that doesn't go through the, now you probably should run it through the filter system.
Yeah, it should go through the system.
Yeah, it should go through the system, so it'll have to be maybe leave a faucet on or whatever.
Yeah, because if there's any bacteria in the system, you
That's
won't have
right.
that chlorine.
Well, it should have got it out of there with a gallon of bleach, but,
The first time it was 115, this time it's less than 2, but there should be 0.
yeah,
Does the
absolutely.
state say that it should be 0?
Yeah. It-
Less than 2 is not a lot, so.
No, it isn't, but still, it needs to, I would have them dump another gallon right in it, maybe even 2, won't hurt it. You're gonna smell the chlorine in here for a few days, but if you run the water, it'll be gone.
Okay,
Let it set a little bit and can take a test in a week or so.
okay.
Well, if we can't fix it, we're gonna raise water bill and sell to the town for $200.
You're all hot.
We still got that.
Oh, yeah, you got cans. All right, anything else? Anything
No,
else?
the only thing I mentioned earlier, I'd like to get an email on what's going on, just 'cause I don't get a chance to get in here. It's nice, it comes on my phone, I sit in the bus sometimes and I read what's going on, you know. I mean, that's,
You're talking about the,
yeah, what's
Yeah.
happening for the warrant article for,
yeah, I look at those at home too, so it's,
because we didn't get any this time, and I asked why, and that was before you got here.
Well, I picked one up early, so I was up here for something.
Yeah,
move to adjourn.
yep, I'll second
Motion
that.
made to adjourn, all those in
Second.
favor?
Thank you,
all.
guys.
You're home in time for NCIS.
No, won't make it.
No?
Lousy weather.
The way you drive, you'll
I
make
want you
it,
to follow
buddy.
me and see if I can run
Yeah,
it.
it's a new one tonight, too.
Signatures for the,
Okay.
for the town ISOs and the town report.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Are we gonna follow up on making,
Thank you.
Follow up on that, and we'll follow up on clarification.
otherwise,
Make sure I send an email.
yeah, that would be good,
half an hour.
because I know Rick doesn't ask you to come in here, and I like to send that information.
Well, it gets,
How was it?
kind of want to do it while I'm sitting there waiting for kids to get on, I just, and if I get home at night, sometimes I'll, you know, get on and.
Hey, Ricky, just text me when you get time to reload that crap.
Yeah, it'll be,
Yeah.
depends what the hell the storm is.
Yeah.
But if you get behind